welcome to the If You Roll It, They Will Come podcast hosted by me, SprtanKratos, and this is a new podcast that I'm going to be running on the channel that's going to have a lot of story times. It's going to be me talking about my experiences with weed, any, of the funny moments I've had with it, good stories like that. I'm going to be bringing on my roommates and some friends for some of these episodes, telling some of the stories that involve them, and then, occasionally me and some of my friends, we might just be getting high one day and we might just start talking, and then we might bring the pot in a podcast. Episode might spring up from out of it. So you might see some episodes like that where it might just be like an hour and 30 minutes of us just bantering about something, I don't know what. So yeah, this is that new podcast. If you roll it, they will come podcast. And let's hop into our first episode. And this first episode is going to be about my experiences greening out. Now, for those of you who don't smoke and don't know what greening out is, that is just when you smoke way too much and usually you throw up. Now, that's how I signify greening out. Some people might have some other definition, but it's only if you get too sick from, or if you get sick from being high, that doesn't mean you green out. It only counts if you're throwing up. It's gotta actually cause you some pain. Even if it just causes you a really bad headache or something, but you're able to sleep it off, you're fine. That doesn't count as greening out. Greening out only for me counts when you start throwing up and there's other issues like that. Water break. Hey, stay hydrated. Now, okay. So, getting on to the first story now that you all know what greening out actually means. So, this happened back in, I want to say, February of 2020. Now, I had only been smoking the first time I started smoking was December of 2019, December 26th, December 27th. That was the first day I smoked. So, it being February 2020, it hasn't been that long since the first time. And I think the amount of time that I'd smoked since then, this was, I want to say, my fourth time since then. And I think this was my first time since, I want to say, New Year's that I had smoked. So it had been a while. It was middle of February, so it had been a minute. And so what I decided to smoke was I decided to buy a joint from one of my coworkers who actually became my dealer for the time I was living in California. Well, I still technically live there, but at college right now. But so he was my dealer, and we're gonna call him Juan. So Juan was my dealer for a time, and he worked with me at the place where I worked, and I worked at Papa Murphy's at the time. So he would, I found out. I knew he sold because everyone at work smoked, right? It's very obvious, and he was the known dealer. So he told I started talking to him. I'm like, yo, I'm starting to smoke. I need to buy something, and he's like, okay, what you want? And I'm like, okay, just get me a pre-roll. So I just got a 1 gram pre-roll for $5, right? I got this one thing, and the only times I had smoked before were I had hit the first 2 times were off a vape, and the second time was in a bowl. So this was the first pre-roll I was smoking. So I didn't really know how much you were supposed to smoke of it. And I really didn't. And okay, when I started smoking this, I didn't want to put it out. I wasn't going to put it out and stop smoking it. I was going to finish the fucking pre-roll. So I light it up. This is a 1 gram pre-roll. And this is on I want to say this is on a Tuesday afternoon after school, right? I come home. I don't have to do stuff after school, which is very rare for me because I was usually very busy after school with work and clubs after school. So I come home. I didn't have to do anything. And this was the day I was like, I am smoking this joint. I am getting high right now and enjoying my afternoon. Because my parents aren't home, and the only other people at home are my younger brothers. And they're not going to really care. They're not going to care. Because I was a senior at the time, and one of them was a sophomore in high school, and the other one was I want to say 7th grader. Yeah, I think he was a 7th grader. Wow. So that's that. So I go up into my room. I put down the towel, I light up a candle, open up both of the windows in my room. I had two nice windows, so like I could really air the fuck out of my room. That was the one really good thing about this, was I had a kind of a perfect room for this because it had two windows and they were on different sides and they always got a breeze. Like, because I lived in California in Sacramento, the Delta breeze would come in and we would get it and it would blow through my house. But even during this time, like, wind would just kind of sweep through my room, so it would be able to air out pretty well. So I just had to throw the towel under the door, try to stop some of the smoke that way. Don't really know if it worked. My brothers didn't say anything to me, so I assume it worked. And I had the Febreze can in my room ready to go. So I start smoking this thing up. And I'm like, halfway through it, and it's not hitting me. And I'm just like, okay. This is pretty good. I like this, but it's not hitting me yet. So then I get down to the 3/4 part, or I'm around 3/4 of it done. And at this point, I'm thinking, this shit is weak. What the fuck is this? Like, when the fuck is this supposed to hit, right? Like, because with vapes, they hit so fast. Like, it can hit you instantly. So I was kind of used to that, like, quick 30-second to, like, or not 30 seconds, like, instantaneous to, like, 2-3 minute mark of what a vape is, to where with this pre-roll and it was taking me a few minutes, like I was 3/4 of the way done with a 1 gram pre-roll. So that, like, I at least had been smoking it for at least like 5 to 10 minutes, right? Let's say like 10 minutes. But then, as I'm standing there, saying, like, at my windowsill, standing like, wow, this is fucking weak, a wave hits me. A fucking wave just drops over me, and I just go, whoomp, and I'm like, oh, I'm high now. So this just came out of fucking left field. So so at this point, I'm high. And because I'm high, I start vibing, and then I finish the rest of the pre-roll because, I'm starting to look at, like, fuck, I don't know if I'm going to finish it, but I'm like, okay, I had to finish it. So I finish or whatever, and then I vibe out. All I know is I ate some popcorn and was chilling in my room watching some YouTube. And then this was around 3 o'clock, right? Around 4:35, I started to get a little headache. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go take a nap. I wake up around 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, I had to drive my youngest brother to his soccer practice. And I get up. And I'm not feeling good at all, boys. I am not feeling good at all. I get up with a fucking headache. And, like, my knees are wobbling. Like, when I stand up, the room is, like, spinning, bro. I cannot see straight. I cannot stand straight. It is not good. So, I get up. And I'm just kind of like, whoa, okay. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom. So I stumble my way over to the bathroom, which is just down the hall. And I live up on the second, my room's on the second floor. All of our rooms are on the second floor. So I stumble up to the bathroom on the second floor. And when I get in there, I puke. I just instantly throw up. And I'm just like, oh, God, I just don't feel good. So then I just tell Trace, I'm like, hey, I just threw up. I don't feel good. I'm going to go lay down. And he's like, okay. And then I just text my mom. I'm like, hey, I threw up. I don't really feel that good. I'm going to go lay down. I can't take Trace to practice. And she was like, oh, okay, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Get better. So, yeah, that was the first time I greened out. And I went back to sleep. I think I woke up later and I felt fine. I just kind of slept it off. That was really, like, safe. The next time I greened out was, like, a month and a half later. It was late March. I want to say this was after March 13th, after that Friday, after everything went to shit. So this was, I don't know exactly what day it was, because, like, everything from March 13th on, to when I started college in August is really a blur, like, or not really, but March, April, and May really kind of blend together, those months just kind of blend into one, and I don't really know what happened when. I do know there was that party that happened in March, that's for another story, but, so, yeah, this time, it was in later March, and I had already been smoking for, like, a decent amount of time. Like, even though the other one was in February, I'd started smoking a lot more in March because I was starting to smoke more with Juan, my dealer, out at Papa Murphy's after work. And we'd smoke with some other people too, like some of the other girls that would be there. If they were closing with us, they'd come over and smoke too. So, like, we had I was getting high, like, maybe once a week in March at that point, like, from like March 13th on. Like after I came back from STN, it kind of started. So one day I'm talking with Juan, and he's like, yo, do you want to take dabs after work in my car, with me in my car? And I'm like, what the hell is a dab? And he's like, oh, I'll show you, man. I'm like, okay. And I'm just kind of like, sure, man. Yeah, let's do this. And I'm just kind of like, what the fuck is a dab? Like the whole time, I'm just kind of sitting there like, what the fuck is a dab? Like you got to remember, I'd only started smoking in December. And I had known what a bong was. I had known what a pipe was. I know what a joint was. I know what carts were. I didn't know what a dab was. So he like kind of shows me. And then we get into his car right after work. Like we close, whatever. We get into his car. And like he brings it around back the shop, and we hop in, and he shows me his little tiny rig, and I'm like, okay, so it's like a little bong, and he's like, yeah, you kind of understand. I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. So I'm just kind of sitting there like, okay, this looks cool. And then he shows me the wax, and I'm like, what's that? He's like, wax, and I'm like, oh, so that's like really high THC. He's like, yeah, it's like pure THC basically. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, okay, so that's some heavy fucking stuff right there. Like that's some shit that's gonna put me on my ass. So he goes ahead and lights it up, and the first thing I notice is, I don't know what the thing is called, the little end cap or the stopper. You know what you use if like you smoke, you know what I'm talking about with the dab rig, the thing you put on top of your dab, you know, to hold in the smoke, but when you inhale it into the main chamber and stuff. So that thing I was looking at, I'm like, and then I even said this out loud, I'm like, yo, that looks like a fucking crack pipe. And Juan, you know, he looks at me and he goes like, yeah, dude, it does, doesn't it? And okay, this should have been a red fucking flag for me, that I was way in over my head. Like, I had kind of had a feeling I was in over my head, but that should have been like the moment, like, okay, man, this is way too much for me, bro. It looks like we're smoking crack. Like, I can see the wax. Like, it was diamonds, I think, because his stuff was white, like crystal. Like, his stuff was like pure shit. So it was some like high quality stuff, you know, like stuff that was gonna get me really fucked up. So so we go ahead, and like my dumbass is like still in on this, even though I should have been out of it the moment he said, yeah, man, it looks like a crack pipe, doesn't it? Like I should have been out of that car and just been like, nah, man, you know what, I'll just stick with my like carts and joints, you know, I'll stick with what I know, because I'm a little fucking idiot and dabs scare me right now. But the little baby decided to go on with this journey. So I go ahead and I watch him take his hit, and he goes and he takes it fine. And hold up, I want to preface this. I was 18 in this story. Juan was a good 2 years younger than me. So just to put it in perspective, that like he was way more experienced than I was, and just the age difference is just like kind of funny to me, that the 16-year-old was leading the older 18-year-old into this experience. So what we do, or he goes ahead and takes his dab, and then he gives me one, and then he gives me like it wasn't that small, it was a good sized dab, and then I go ahead and chief that shit down, and then I'm sitting there and just like I chief it down and I feel good, right? I cough a little bit, get some water in me, but I'm feeling fine. I had a water bottle, you know, I know how I am. I'm still a bitch at this point, right? So I'm sitting there, and like 5-10 minutes go by, I swear, and it doesn't hit me. Like, it had maybe been like 6 minutes, or 7 minutes, but it felt like 10-15 minutes. I'm like, damn, it didn't hit me. So I'm like, and he had already taken another one. So I'm like, yo, Ricky. And he was like, yo, man, you feel anything? I'm like, nah, man, I'm not feeling anything yet. He's like, okay, let's take another one. And I'm like, shit, okay, man. Yeah, let's take another one. I go ahead and take another one. And as soon as that thing entered my lungs, I fucking knew I was sent. It all hit me like a fucking truck, bro. A hammer punched me in the fucking face, and I was laid flat out in his car, in his passenger seat. I could feel it. And the worst part is, I could feel it in my lungs. And this feeling in my lungs was very interesting. And this is a feeling I only have really felt when I've greened out. I've felt it a few times before or since, but I haven't greened out since. And all those times, because when I feel this, I kind of know my limit. And I will get back to the story in a second, but I want to talk about the sensation in my lungs. It's a white hot nail sensation. Like your lungs are burning. You feel your lungs burning on fire, and you can tell it's like a white fire. I don't know why. For me, it feels like a white fire. The lungs are just on fire, bro, and it just hurts to breathe, and like your stop, like it all just hurts to do anything, right? And it'll stay with you, and you can just like slow down your breathing, do whatever you can, and it still will stay with you. So that was hitting me after the second hit. He goes ahead and does another dab for himself, and he doesn't finish it all the way. So then he starts hyping me up. He's like, yo, finish this and that other one. I'm like, nah, man. Like, he starts chanting my name to get me to take the rest of his dab. And I fucking take the rest of his fucking dab. So at this point, I am higher than I ever thought I could be. And not in a good way. This is not a high where I'm enjoying myself. This is a high where I have a headache. I'm having a panic attack. I can't really breathe. I don't know what's happening. So I sit in his car for about 10, 15 minutes after this, and I'm just like a little freaking out. And then after a while, I'm like, yo, okay, I'm getting the feeling worse. I get out of his car. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna head out, right? Like, I'm just gonna head back to my place. Because I didn't live that far from where I worked. So I go ahead and hop back into my car, and my head is pounding me, right? And I go ahead and I drive home. I drive like the 1.5 miles, 2 miles back to my place, and my head was hurting the entire time. Like, it was not that good. Like, should I have driven? A little suspect, because of how I was feeling. No. I was fine enough to drive. Don't worry about it. I was good enough to drive, you know? But yeah, so I had a headache. I drove home. I was not feeling good at all. When I got home, the first thing I did was just run upstairs. I just ran immediately upstairs, and my parents knew that was weird. They can immediately sense something off. They're like, what the fuck is up with you? They're like, is everything okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just going to go ahead and go to sleep right now. I'm really tired, right? Like, I don't want dinner. And they're like, you don't want to eat? And I'm like, no, I don't really feel good. And then my mom started yelling at me and bitching at me. And she was like, Lofton, you need to take a effing shower right now. And she was like, I don't care if you want to go to sleep. You need to take a shower. And I was like, I'm just going to lay down for a little bit. I'll take a shower in like 20 minutes. She was like, no, you need to get in the fucking shower right now. Like, she was full on just yelling at me for no goddamn reason. So I just go into my room and I lay down, right? For like a good 20 minutes. I'm laying down on my bed, and it feels like I am on my deathbed. My face is hot. I am sweating. I do not feel good. The world is spinning around me. I don't know what the fuck is going on. And I don't know what the fuck Juan gave me, bro. I swear to God, I was higher than I've ever thought I could be. And not in a good way, like I said earlier. This was not good at all. So after about 20 minutes, my mom comes up into my room, and she starts yelling at me again. She's like, Lofton, you need to go and take a shower now. And then she's like, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm like, oh, I just don't feel good. I'm just going to lay down, right? And she's like, no. And then she comes up and feels my head. And then she's like, she can feel I'm hot. She just goes, do you have COVID? And I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck did you just say to me? Because this is in March of 2020. This is right when COVID was getting big. And as I said earlier, I'm pretty sure this is after like schools were shut down. So she was like, do you have COVID? And I was like, no, I don't. I just don't feel good. She was like, holy. And then she was like, Lofton, go take a shower right now. So then she left my room, and then I could hear her talking to my dad and like thinking like, oh, he might have COVID. We might have to test him. And then I was like, oh no. My dad came up and checked on me, and I was like, oh no, I'm fine, whatever. And then he was like, okay. Like, I don't know how I was able to get out. Like, once they thought I got COVID, I don't know how I didn't go to a hospital. Like if they were, I thought they would have just done that, but no, they decided like it was fine. So then my mom was like, you just need to take a shower. So after laying in bed for another 15 minutes, like they, I think, go to their room because I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a shower. And I am not fucking kidding you. I take a 20-minute army crawl from my room to the bathroom. I maybe am 20, 30 feet from the bathroom, maybe 50 feet at most. And it was a 20-minute army crawl for me with multiple stops along the way of just me laying down, exhausted. When I got to the bathroom, the first thing I did was throw up all over in the toilet. After I threw up, I hung out on the toilet for like 20 minutes. My mom checked on me. I was like, oh yeah, I'm good. I just threw up. She's like, oh, okay. And then I hopped in the shower and like laid down in it, got out, like stumbled my way back to my room and laid down. And this whole time, even after I threw up, I wasn't getting better. Because for me, sometimes I can be that person where if I throw up, I can still feel good. Throwing up can make me feel good, Like, it helps get everything out of my system, cleans it up, and therefore, if it cleans it up, there's nothing to make me feel sick. But that didn't happen. All that it did was, like, it made me so I could walk. Like, instead of doing a 20-minute army crawl back from the fucking bathroom in my room, I was able to stumble my way back, but the world was still fucking spinning, and I still couldn't keep my balance under me. And, yeah, so I got back to my room after that, after throwing up, and went to sleep. And in the morning, my parents came to check on me. They were like, hey, and then I was like, yeah, I'm feeling fine. I was like a one-day sickness thing. I don't really know what the fuck it was. I was like, I think it might have just been like a stomach sickness or something. And they're like, oh, okay, that's weird. They were like still a little sus about it, but they didn't do anything about it because, it wasn't COVID, and I was obviously feeling better. So they just kind of let it be. And yeah. And okay, I'm just going to tell you some of the funny parts now. Sometimes my parents will reference me being sick around the time COVID started. And every time they do, I'm always like, are they talking about the time I greened out and they thought I got COVID? Because I got COVID after moving into college, but I had no symptoms. And my parents, and I'm like, oh, I probably got it before then, like in school. And I did get sick around December, January time, like a separate sickness, But my parents always like, yeah, you got sick around that time. And I don't know if they're talking about when I was sick in like December, January, or if they're talking about when I was sick in fucking March with fucking greening out. So yeah, that's the fucking little like snippet, because my parents will always bring that up, and I'm just sitting there like, are you talking about when I greened out, or are you talking about when I was actually sick? So yeah, that was my 2 stories about greening out. And now, my advice to you, if you ever feel your lungs get to a white hot piercing sensation, like they're just burning up and you cannot breathe, like it is hard to breathe, stop smoking. If you stop smoking, get some water into you, you should be good, and you should be able to pass it without puking. If you continue, I'm sorry, you're definitely gonna throw up. But this is only with smoking weed. If you do edibles, you need to know your limit beforehand, because if you throw up on edibles, that's kind of all on you for not knowing your limit, man. Like, I can't really sympathize with you a whole too much because you didn't know your limit and you took a little too much to party with. But yeah, that was my story. Like and subscribe if you guys thought that was good, and I will catch you guys in the next podcast episode. Peace.